eighth wonder of the world, basically a geek show. And here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
Welcome to episode 71.
71.
Of basically a geek show.
I'm drinking.
This is Jack.
I'm Mike.
And you're also drunk.
I'm not drunk. I'm drinking. I haven't drunk enough to be drunk yet, but I am drinking.
That'll probably change by the end of the show. Anyways, so, final part of our semi-in-depth read, half-assed coverage of World of Warcraft and the awesomeness which is Legion.
Kind of giving it away because this is our Legion thoughts. I mean, we talked. Well, the first part was we just talked about the movie, which
meh.
I thought was it's meh, but I feel bad about it because it's not even. It didn't even do well enough to justify an extended cut on the DVD, and it's like, look, it wasn't anything special, but I still enjoyed it. It was competent.
It still did better than Ghostbusters, okay?
Well, okay, yeah. Which is hilarious, by the way, that, Legion... not Legion, the Warcraft movie, people are calling a flop. It made around $400 million worldwide. People are calling it a flop, which, in terms of Hollywood economics, yeah, it made its money back, but there are a lot of other costs that it failed to recoup, so, okay, yeah, it's a flop. Ghostbusters shits the bed, barely crosses the $200 million mark after 5 weeks or even more, like a month and a half in theaters, and you still have some people trying to say it's not a flop. No, it's a flop.
Yeah, I mean, that is, objectively a flop. I mean, Warcraft is like, Hollywood and blah, blah, blah. To them, it might be a flop. But, I mean, to us, it's like, all right, well, it broke even, so whatever.
It's the highest grossing video game movie of all time, which is admittedly a low bar.
Well, I mean, if they listened to us and released it on the fucking Tuesday...
Oh, yeah.
It probably would have done better. But anyways. So, yeah, World of Warcraft Legion... I have reached max level on one character, working on a second. Mike is almost max level on his main.
109, yeah, and I'm taking time out of fighting the forces of Space Satan so I can be talked down to by condescending Moose Man.
I'm excuse me. I'm going to come right out and say that I think if this is a big if Blizzard continues doing what they are doing with this expansion, it will be my favorite of all time.
See, that's the thing. I think if I was going to be entirely objective about what expansions I like, I would say Pandaria is actually probably my favorite of all time.
Right now, for me, it is also Pandaria currently.
Well, see, here's the thing. I would say it's Pandaria, except there's two things. There's the sort of Scandinavian atmosphere that Lich King had, which I dig, plus the fact that it had Arthas' story, which I dig, plus the fact that it was my first WoW expansion, makes Lich King really hard to top, so I'm not even putting Pandaria above Lich King just because Lich King wins in the intangible areas.
I would say I'm the same way on that, but I recognize Lich King is my favorite, but it's not an objective favorite on my part. I can't really quantify it beyond just saying, hey, I started playing in Wrath. That's where a lot of my memories are tied around.
And I like Vikings.
Yeah, and the whole tundra frozen vibe I dig too. So I mean, a lot of the reason why I like Wrath so much is subjective, and I can't, when I look objectively at Wrath and Miss Pandaria, Pandaria is honestly the better expansion. The story was better done, better handled.
Oh, I absolutely love the story in Pandaria.
The questing was better.
And we got to sack the Horde capital, and just it's good every few years just to remind the Horde that they exist in our Legion.
Right, exactly. And but I mean, Legion is doing a lot of the same things that Pandaria did, but doing them better even.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if Blizzard keeps doing what they're doing with Legion, it will definitely be my favorite. I mean, we're just over a week into the expansion. They've already announced the first patch, the first major content patch, which will have a revamped Karazhan as basically a de facto 5-man raid. They're calling it a dungeon.
I've heard them call it both a 5-man raid and like
a mega dungeon.
A mega dungeon. So
yeah,
it's kind of existing in that gray area.
Well, I mean, it's supposed to be like above mythic difficulty, and it's got a fucking week lockout, a week-long lockout. I mean, it's a fucking raid. And it's a 5-man raid.
And the good news is that it's not going to be just an update of the old Karazhan raid. It's going to be completely new.
Right. I mean, it's completely new. They're not fucking with the old one. It's still going to be there if you want to go in and not get the mount or anything like that, or just nostalgia trip. You can still go to old Karazhan. It's still there.
I would actually run Karazhan a lot more than I do if I didn't have to do that fucking chess event.
Yeah. Yeah, well, evidently the new one's going to have a new take on that too.
Which, by the way, but I can't hate that chess event entirely, because that chess event is the only in-game representation of original Timeline Blackhand.
Is it?
Blackhand, original Timeline Blackhand, doesn't appear in World of Warcraft in graphical form in any other way except in that chess event.
Really?
Yep. So I got to give it up to my boy. And again, it's awesome, because we're in the Blackhand renaissance, given that he was in the movie, and I think one of the better parts of the movie.
And he was the only one of the fucking Iron Horde.
He who actually accomplished it.
It actually, seemed, And he was
the only one who had like a proper conclusion. Like, you fight Blackhand in the Blackrock Foundry, and it actually does feel like this guy is a fucking badass who we have to take down.
Yeah, and it feels like a fucking knockdown, drag-out fight. I mean, you pretty much destroy the entire building in the process. As opposed to
fucking Ner'zhul, the original Lich King, mega shaman of the orcs, and he goes out in a 5-man like a bitch.
He doesn't even drop epics. Get out of here with your weak shit.
And then it got so bad that the only Iron Horde guy who actually got like a final raid appearance was fucking Kilrog Deadeye, who nobody cares about.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So yeah, I dig the chess event, if only because I get to see original Timeline Blackhand in game, and he's my boy. So
they're doing that. They are adding in another raid, which is like it's a very small. It's a 3-boss raid. It's not meant to be like a huge deal. It's a filler raid, and even Blizzard basically is calling it that.
Lord Jaraxxus should be a boss in it. Like, that should just be his thing. Like, he's just the bitch in filler raids. We have returned. Fuck you.
There should be like a single boss raid of Lord Jaraxxus, and you just walk into it, and where it displays the raid title when you zone in, it just says filler content.
It's like, the Broken Shore, Lord Jaraxxus shows up, we have returned to destroy your world. You got summoned by a gnome. Fuck
You're the second boss in the filler raid. Shut the fuck up. But yeah, so we're getting Trials of Valor in addition to Karazhan. And it's a 3-boss raid, which will be Odin.
We have to fight Odin again.
Because we have to prove ourselves to him again.
He's just been in Valhalla for so goddamn long that he's bored. And we just have to entertain him now that things are happening.
They haven't ran cable lines out to where he lives in Valhalla yet, so we're his entertainment, basically.
He's like, I know you already proved myself twice, but, I'm bored, and it's been a slow 10,000 years, so...
Yeah, and it's going to have Odin,
Ella.
Helia, and Guarm, whatever the fuck his name is, the Cerberus, basically.
I wouldn't put it past them to throw in some more Sylvanas Gen stuff, just because it's Stormheim, and I doubt Sylvanas is just going to be like, oh, Gen ruined my chances of immortality, derp-a-derp.
Yeah, I mean...
And by the way, Gen fucking poning Sylvanas has been my favorite part of all of this so far.
On that topic, actually, there is currently... Well, there was earlier, I don't know if it's still going, there's a thread on MMO Champion that said Gen Greymane is a war criminal.
Oh, why?
They never really said why, or I didn't pay attention. I just went on there and basically said, Greymane Proudmoore 2016 makes the Alliance great again.
He's going to build a wall, even though he already did that.
He's going to build another one, and make the Forsaken pay for it.
Look about Stormheim. I've got my best people in Stormheim. Best. We've got a lot of things going on in Stormheim. It's going to be fantastic. Believe me, you're not going to believe it.
So, okay. Real talk. Now, you've gotten to 109. Yes. You've seen most of pretty much every zone, save for Suramar, but we'll get to that in a moment. What are your thoughts and impressions on it?
They're overall very positive because, okay, I went to Azuna, the zone is Azuna after Stormheim. I went to Stormheim first because I wanted to see the Gen Sylvanas stuff. After that, I went to Azuna, and I only went to Azuna because that's where the Paladin quest chain sent me next. And if that wasn't the case, I would probably have saved Azuna for last because it's Naga stuff, and I hate the Naga. And
I don't mind the Naga. I mean,
hate the Naga so much, and I'm dreading the Queen Azara expansion that's inevitable because it's just going to be so much fucking Naga bullshit. But my point is that I hate the Naga, and I was looking forward to hating the zone. And while I didn't like it as much as Stormheim, I really dug it. I liked it, and the fact that I liked it at all is really telling because I wasn't expecting to like it, and so
yeah, most people are saying that basically the story chain around Prince Ferondis is one of the best quest chains WoW's ever done.
I wouldn't say that. I've heard that too. I don't get it personally. It's very good, but people are making it out to be fantastic, and it's not. I thought it was fine. I liked it. It didn't bore me. I thought the story was good. I dug the fact that Ferondis has some pathos and that everyone kind of hates him, and but they kind of have good reason to. And so I dig the story, but I'm not getting the greatest ever sense out of it, but whatever.
That was kind of my take on it too. I did thoroughly enjoy it. I did really like it. There's not a damn thing wrong with it. If you were to ask me, well, how could we have improved it? I couldn't tell you a damn thing. But I didn't think it was like, oh my god, the most epic storyline ever in World of Warcraft. I still thoroughly enjoyed myself. I did actually like Azuna. I don't mind the Naga storylines as long as I don't have to do too much underwater shit. I don't mind them at all.
I think they learned not to rely too heavily on underwater shit after Cataclysm.
Which, I mean, you do get into an underwater quest chain in Suramar, and it's done a lot differently than Bashir. It's not bad. I wouldn't say it's really good, but it's not bad either. It goes on a lot longer than I think it should, but whatever. Anyway,
but
so
I'm digging it overall. It's one of those cases where I'm having a hard time thinking of negatives, and my major negative right now is it's weird because it's definitely a negative, but at the same time, it's almost a positive, and that is that I feel like currently right now there's just too much to do.
And that's what a lot of people are saying. It's like, oh, well, I mean, it's a problem that we enjoy having, but oh my God, there's just so much shit to do. And if you think you got a lot to do now, wait till you hit 110.
I mean, especially after a year and a half of fucking standing around in our garrisons doing, filling out work orders. This is definitely a breath of fresh air. But I'm just saying, I've got the main expansion storyline that I'm doing. Then there's the separate Order Hall thing, which because Vortgen is a Pally, that's the one I'm doing right now. So I've got the main Legion story, the Pally Order story. And then on top of that, I've also got the blacksmithing story for my professions, and I'm like, well, I'm sorry, blacksmithing, you're going to have to hold off for a bit, because these other two things take precedence. But there is kind of a sense of having too much to do, but again, yeah, like you said, it's a problem I'm happy to have, because I know eventually once I get through a lot of this, then time that would in a usual expansion would be like downtime with nothing to do. It's like, oh, well, I still have this stuff to go finish, and that's when I'll do that. So I'm digging it. I would say this is the best chance to eclipse Lich King as my favorite expansion, because a lot of the intangibles that I think push Lich King above Pandaria are echoed here. Like, we've talked about how this is very much revisiting a lot of Lich King. Stormheim is basically all of Northrend condensed into one zone. We've got Dalaran back. The Legion in this expansion is being presented as probably the biggest threat we've faced since the Scourge in Lich King. I mean, in Cataclysm, Deathwing broke the world, supposedly, but all he did was show up in random zones and give people achievements.
Now, the Iron Horde, I mean...
They took over that 1/8 of Blasted Lands. That was pretty touch and go there for a while. So, and then in Pandaria, there really even wasn't a big threat for a while until they really started gearing the garage thing into... But by that point, the expansion was like half over, so... And then, Draenor was the Iron Horde, who were built up as this big menacing thing, and then we killed like 9/10 of their leadership into, the launch, so... but the Legion's being properly portrayed, and I know a lot of people are kind of getting on Blizzard for all of the fucking death, all the character death, but I dug it because
it actually, I don't know, it adds gravity to what we're doing.
It does, and that's a cheap thing to say, I think, in and of itself, because it's sort of like, cheap drama is to kill people, but at the same time, going back to the Broken Shore event, it really did have this sense of helplessness, because, we kind of belittle Tyrion Forging a lot because of how Wrath ended. We basically literally carried his ass for him to get all the credit, but at the same time, in the lore, in the canon of the Warcraft story, Ashbringer's the sword that killed the Lich King. Tyrion is the guy who killed Arthas. And he gets taken out by Gul'dan like it's nothing. So it really does have the sense of, oh shit, crap's going down. And I dig that. And it's really presented as this dire situation a lot of times. And as far as the story goes, that's awesome, because Draenor tried to do this thing where it's like you're trapped on an alien world and Grom is going, this is my world, you're at my mercy, but you never felt besieged. Even when you were in the Temple of Kerebor, and the story is you're literally being besieged by the Iron Horde, you never felt besieged. So I truly do feel like Legion has hit it out of the park. There's lots to do. The story is interesting. I do have my nitpicks. I don't like the fact that the Horde's back in Dalaran. I think that sort of cheapens what happened during Pandaria where we expelled them.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but it still had to be done because, I mean, one of Draenor's big flaws was that, and Pandaria kind of had the same thing going on, too. I mean, you had the two faction-specific cities, looking over the mountain at one another, but there was no neutral city. And, Draenor, God, don't even get me started on that shit again. I've gone on about that enough. So, I mean, people wanted a neutral city again.
Design a new one?
Well, yeah, but then you wouldn't have the whole, hey, you remember Lich King, right? Thing. And this is a way that Blizzard could, save a little bit of time on making an entirely new city by simply refurbishing an old one, and cash in on that sweet, sweet nostalgia. Because, I mean, you had Cataclysm, which tried to cater to vanilla players. You had Draenor that tried to cater to BC players. And now you've got Legion, which is trying to cater to, Wrath players. And they're doing a damn good job. I mean, New Dalaran looks like Dalaran, just better. Very subtly better. Just basically enhanced textures, higher definition, blah, 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 all that bullshit. So, they're doing a good job. They did what they had to do. They, A, put in a neutral city. B, save time, save man-hours on, building a new city that were then used to deliver us the rest of the shit that we've got. And the rest of the shit that we got, frankly, is pretty damn good. So I'm not going to bitch. I mean, yeah, lore-wise, it does kind of suck, and Khadgar's a fucking retard for letting these fucking assholes back into the city. But, what are you gonna do? From a game mechanics and game setup standpoint, it did kind of need to be done.
I suppose. But, I'll take solace in the fact that Sylvanas actually lost, and, fuck everyone saying Gendraimon's a war criminal. He kept Sylvanas from, having the means to be immortal, and that's a good thing, because Sylvanas is a bitch.
Yeah, she's not a very good person at all. If I were to say that there was something that I would tick off in the negative column for Legion, I would say some of the zone design, while all of them are beautiful, and aesthetically the best work Blizzard has ever done. So, I mean, every subsequent expansion, aesthetically, they managed to top the prior. Well, with the exception of Cataclysm, that just kind of was just more of what you already had. But, I mean, that being said, everything since then has been a progressive iteration of what came prior. And, Legion is no exception. It looks beautiful. So, that's a thing. While they're all aesthetically beautiful, the problem is that the actual design itself for these zones is, in a lot of cases, it's very confusing. It's a pain in the ass to navigate. High Mountain especially is guilty of that. You keep wandering around. You never know where you're going. You're, looking in all these caves, and I swear to God, if I never see another cave in World of Warcraft again, it will be too soon. And he's not going to hear this, but actually right now, he had to go pee really bad. He messaged me on Skype and told me this. So I'm talking to cover for him while he trains Blizzard. We'll just, you guys can just post that on the forum. He doesn't know. Anyways, so that's a lot of my problem with it, right? you go into the zone, like, well, I'll use High Mountain as an example. Very, like, scenic kind of, upper North American / Canadian, looking wilderness kind of a deal. And, you go in there and, you're questing around, and there's all these mountains around you, and there's caves, and you go into these fucking caves, right? And they're multi-level, and, like, you're looking at your map, you're trying to figure out, okay, well, where the fuck do I go to do this quest, that quest?
It's like they designed an entire zone using the urban planner that made Orgrimmar.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and it gets really confusing after a while. Like, and this isn't like a me thing. I mean, yeah, I'm a shite navigator, but evidently I'm not the only one that's getting confused in these places. And even just trying, like, even not in the cave, like trying to get into the entrance of the cave, because you see an objective on the map, and you're like, oh, hey, I go here. And you go there, and you're like, oh, fuck, it's a mountain. All right, well, where's the entrance of the goddamn cave? And you're wandering around, looking for it. God forbid you fucking die. Because then you're just fucked. Because then you get flung off to a goddamn graveyard, who knows where. Sometimes, like, a quarter of the way across the map. And a lot of shit you haven't seen before, right? So, like, and it's all, like, grayscale when you die, and you're in, like, the spirit realm or whatever. And you're looking, and everything looks kind of different because you don't have that same visual point of reference that you can go by.
Let me tell you a High Mountain Graveyard story. I died, and
like a scrub.
I couldn't figure out where I was supposed to go, so I pull up my map. I see where my body is. I'm like, oh, shit, I won't be able to get there. So I just figured I'd eat the res sickness.
Right.
So I eat the res sickness, where you basically just talk to, like, the spirit ghost thing at the graveyard, and it's like, okay, I'll revive you here so you don't have to go back to your body, but all your stats get cut for 75% for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I figured, all right, I'll just do that. I'll just tab out and browse YouTube mindlessly for 10 minutes while my stats recover. So I click. I head up. So I click the spirit thing, accept the res sickness, pop up at the graveyard, and there is a elite Etten right there. And he just curb stomps me. I'm like, fuck!
Yeah, I've had similar things happen to me too, where sometimes it seems like even the graveyards aren't safe. Like, similar situation. It's like, God damn it, I'll just, eat this res sickness and, go fuck off for 10 minutes, whatever. And you pop up and wham! Something fucking just rapes you. Like, before your pixels can even fully materialize, you're right back dead again. It's like, fuck! And that's another thing, and I would actually put this in the plus column. The questing, like, the overall difficulty level of the questing in Legion is a bit higher.
It is, yes.
And I think that's a good thing. It makes you try harder. It makes you have to think a little bit more. The dungeons are still, they're fine. They're good. They're not like, Cataclysm dungeons, which were, like, retardedly difficult.
We gotta capture that vanilla!
That was God. Like, I mean, during Cataclysm, we took, like, half of our raid team in to do a heroic Cataclysm dungeon. And, we did great in Lich King. Well, we did good in Lich King. I mean, we cleared most of ICC. We knew what we were doing. We were all fairly competent-ish players. We go into fucking a heroic goddamn dungeon in fucking Cataclysm. We get halfway through and we're just raped. It's like, what the fuck? The hell, man?
Yeah, no, Cataclysm definitely overdid it. There is a sweet spot when it comes. You don't want to make things. You don't want to make the game too easy, but at the same time, you can't make it too difficult either. So you really just have to find that middle ground. And from what I've seen, they seem to have hit it perfectly. I think they've made things a bit more difficult on the questing side of things, which is a good thing. I agree with you on that. It's more difficult, but at the same time, it doesn't feel grindy.
No.
So, which is the good thing. You want people to work for the quests, but you don't want to make it feel like they're grinding, because nobody likes to grind.
Well, you're right. You're right. The other thing I would say in the bad column, and this is a nitpick and very subjective, I don't care for a lot of the music. I just don't.
I dig the music. I love the Legion
music. It feels like they did not put, okay, now there are exceptions. High Mountain, ironically, has one of the better soundtracks. And of course, then there's the part/tomb music in Stormwind, which is amazing. Then, of course, the main title is good once you get past the broken Dixie horn that sounds at the beginning and is kind of grating. Once you get past that, it's great. But, the actual zone music, it's very, the loop is way too short. It gets really repetitive to me, really annoying. It feels like they just kind of phoned that part of it in for this one.
See, I love the Legion music. The Broken Shore music is some of my favorite music WoW's ever done.
I didn't pay enough attention to it to tell you.
I did it on all my ults, so...
yeah.
It got a bit repetitive after the 5th time.
I mean, I did it twice. I did it on my Paladin and on my Hunter, but that was it.
The, I would say another big plus for Legion is it made fighting Deathwing fun!
Right? So, okay. You guys have heard Mike and I go on about how the infight in Cataclysm against Deathwing was just garbage.
Doodle Derp and his dinner plate of destiny.
Yeah. And you go into this one part in High Mountain, and it's like a flashback sequence where this Tauren and some of his bros they're all like, hey, Deathwing's an asshole. Let's kick him in the nards. And this seems like a good idea, and so they go and they do it.
And you kind of take part in that through a spirit vision or something.
Yeah, via a flashback spirit vision kind of a thing. You down the peyote, you go through the looking glass, and there you are. You're fighting Deathwing. The funny thing is, this really, it's just a very generic, typical dragon fight.
Yeah.
But it's still far and above.
It's still far more fulfilling a fight than the end of Cataclysm.
Than the actual, end raid of Cataclysm, the end boss raid of Cataclysm. And you're just basically standing there fucking beating him with your sword, and he's doing dragon things. You avoid the head, you avoid the tail, hit the side, you're good. And that was way better than what they fucking did in Cataclysm. So, yeah, that was the thing. Beyond that, I don't have anything really negative to say about Legion yet. I mean, we'll give it a few months and we'll see.
Well, the thing is that they've already said this is what's coming in 7.1, which is a huge sign because 7.1 already looks to be a huge improvement over 6.1.
Right, because 7.1 actually has content.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that my only concern with 7.1 is, okay, we're going to get this Karazhan thing, which while it is a 5-person raid, it's still only a 5-person raid, and it's not going to be a full raid. It's it occupies this nebulous space between dungeon and raid.
Right, but they've got you covered there too, because of the 3 raids in the base expansion that has already launched. One of them isn't even going to be launched until early 2017.
I get that, but my concern is that 7.1 is going to have Karazhan, and it's going to have, this Vicryl filler raid. My only concern is that people burn through that faster than Blizzard expected.
Well, and that's part of Legion's design I think that's kind of interesting. Like, okay, the main issue of content, they are approaching it from two different angles.
Mm-hmm.
One, they're generating more of it more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Good, thumbs up. The other thing is the content they generate, they are gating it. They are making it in a way that you can't consume it all at once because it's a twofold problem. Them not producing and us over-consuming.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing things on both ends of the spectrum. They're, A, increasing output and frequency of output, while at the same time throttling our rate of consumption. And yeah, from a certain standpoint, it is a pain in the ass when I look at the quest for Suramar and I realize right now I cannot get to Exalted. I can't finish the quest chain. It's gated. It's not finished. It's not in game yet, and that's kind of annoying. But I fully get it because at this point they're going back to basics on a lot of things with this. In the sense that, some of the drop rates on the quests have gone back to being, retarded. Like, I know all 20 of those goddamn bears had fucking livers. Mm-hmm. Why did I have to kill 20 to get 5?
Mm-hmm.
I know for a goddamn fact every one of those fucking basilisks I killed had 2 fucking eyes.
Which I guess is another criticism of mine. I understand that you want quests to be harder, and I totally approve of that. But quests like that you do run the risk of making things a bit too grindy. And so,
right. I mean, at that point, you're almost there with him at Nestingwary and having to go, fetch 300 fucking boar prostates or whatever the hell.
Mm-hmm. So, while I appreciate a lot of what they're doing on the questing side of things, I would like to see them scale a bit back on making the drop rates harder. Like that, drop rates I think are drop rates for fetch quests I think are the one thing I completely am okay with making ridiculously easy, because that is the grindiest of the grindy shit. And if you can cut down on the grindiness as much as possible, I think it's a good thing.
They've taken another approach with it. What they've tried to do is, with the grindy, fetch quest shit, mm-hmm. they've tried to make sure they overlap a lot of quests on top of it. Mm-hmm. So, okay, you've got a quest to go fetch, say, or go grab, 5 chests of whatever. Mm-hmm. 5 chests of gunpowder. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, on top of that, you'll also have a quest to retrieve 4 severed siren tits, whatever the fuck. And, you'll have a couple others in there, and they kind of layer over the same general area, so that basically if you focus on one, you'll end up completing the others just by running around. Those mobs will aggro to you. You'll have to kill them anyways because they're right there and they're attacking you while you're doing these other quests. So if you just kill what's already there, what already aggroes to you naturally, just from the drops from that, you'll end up with what you need to do the quest. Mm-hmm. It's only rarely that the glaring flaw of these drop rates comes through, and they don't even do it on every quest, but there are some that kind of push the limit a little bit of my tolerance. That being said, though, I mean, Legion on the whole, I mean, the launch was 100% fucking seamless.
I fell asleep, so.
Yeah, because you're a bitch. Those of us who actually have testicles were up, and we did the things and the stuff. The launch was seamless. I mean, minus a couple of minor bugs here and there. Everything worked great. You didn't have huge lag spikes. No one got booted. You could log into your server and get shit done. The scaling of the levels worked fantastic, which is a brand new technology that they thrown in.
Yeah, where every zone, it used to, in every expansion up until when, each zone, you start in one zone and then you progress to other zones, and zones are labeled. So it's if you are 90 to 92, quest here. Then you move to the 92 to 93, to like 95 zone. And so like that's how it's always been. And this time, like, you can start in any zone you want, and then you can move on to any zone you want, and the zone scales, and not only that, but content scales. So, like, you are higher level than I am. Or, in fact, I'm higher level than your hunter.
Right.
So, like, I'm 109, your hunter is 102. If you got on your hunter and you and I wanted to do some content together, if there was a world boss that we wanted to down, then, like, that world boss would be scaled 109 for me, it would be scaled 102 for you, and we could both fight it at level appropriate difficulties, and it would work for both of us. And they did the same thing. They kind of debuted this technology with the Legion invasions in the pre-launch events, and in those cases, you had level 100 people fighting alongside, like, level 12 people. And It all worked. And it's not only a neat technology that sort of revolutionizes how new content is presented, but it's really cool just to see that it seems to be entirely seamless.
Yeah, it works on a scale and at a level that I didn't think they'd be able to pull off.
Especially considering that when they first started digging around with scaling and zoning, cross-compatibilities, it used to be that, you couldn't even get on a two-person mount and cross a zone border without being dismounted. And now they've cut it down to the point where two people from two different levels can experience a zone's content, and I'm impressed with just how seamless everything's been.
Yeah, it's been really good, and it's actually, other MMOs have done this to a degree, like Guild Wars 2. Like, my character and your character at two different levels, we could party up and go into, like, I could go into your zone, but I'd be scaled down. Mm-hmm. You could come into my zone, but you'd be scaled up. Mm-hmm. But, like, there's still that boundary there. Like, if you're X level, you go to one of these two zones, or this one zone, so on and so forth. Every level has its zone, and when when you hit level whatever, and you out-level the zone, it doesn't matter if you still have quests left, you go on to the next. Mm-hmm. Because, you're just wasting your time if you stay there. Mm-hmm. And in Legion, it's like, okay, well, if no matter what level you're on, it will scale to that. You can't out-level a zone, so there's no reason to not, unless you just don't want to do any more quests there, and you've done all the main storyline.
So so basically,
there's no reason to not just stay there and do a full clear of the zone. Mm-hmm. So a lot of what they've done with Legion has just taken Warcraft and tilted it up on its ear in very good ways, actually. Mm-hmm. It's half-assed and sloppy and poorly planned as Draenor was. This is the exact opposite. Mm-hmm.
Blizzard likes to say that they don't design stuff in response to stuff like subscription numbers. That's bullshit. They do. And I don't care what official company policy is. Activision Blizzard is a publicly traded company. World of Warcraft is one of their biggest cash cows because it's subscription-based. I have a hard time believing that the subscription numbers dropped from 10 million to 5 million over the course of Warlords of Draenor, and nobody got a fucking memo at Blizzard from Activision HQ that said, fucking fix this. Like, I'm sorry, that's not how the corporate environment works. Like someone got a fucking memo, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it seems to me, and we've talked about how, in a lot of ways, Legion, to quote our guildmaster, seems like the ode to forum whining. in a lot of ways. Or another way to put it is like in case of emergency, break glass expansion.
Right.
But I don't want to. I don't want to say that as a necessarily bad thing because I think that the big thing that was fundamentally altered by Legion,
right, exactly,
was Warlords of Draenor is broken. The game is broken as it currently stands. What we are doing, our design mentality, isn't functioning. So we've got to do something about it. And they goddamn did. Because when I say they of course react to subscription numbers, I'm not saying that, they saw subscription numbers were going down, so they said we're going to bribe players back by giving them everything they wanted. No. They saw the subscription numbers cut the subscriber base in half, and they said, okay, we need to get off our asses and we need to try. And that might piss a lot of people off, and Blizzard themselves would probably say, it's unfair to say we didn't try during Draenor. No, bullshit. There were definitely effort issues into that. The launch experience for Draenor was promising, and then they abandoned the game. When 6.1 finally happened, there was no new content, and they flat out admitted that basically it was a bunch of bullshit they threw together so everyone could, start their Christmas vacations early.
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest thing that Legion did, or what Legion represents, is not that it's like, subscriber numbers are down, let's give players shit they want. It was, subscriber numbers are down, guys, maybe we should stop fucking around and actually try.
Well, I think... Oh, I don't know. I don't think it was deliberate fucking around.
I don't think it was deliberate fucking around either, but I think there was sort of a mentality at Blizzard when it came to Draenor that ultimately wasn't healthy.
Well, the mentality was that they were trying to do this 1 year fucking expansion cycle, and Draenor, like the storyline for Draenor, the pacing for Draenor, all that shit was done with the mindset of this is going to be a year-long expansion. And had it actually been a year-long expansion, it would have been fine.
But it wasn't.
Right. And I think at some point they realized, hey, Legion is taking too long. People aren't happy with Draenor. We lost half the goddamn player base in, less than 1 quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I think, well, okay, we can't think of anything else. I mean, Draenor is already done. Like, we have done, besides Tanan Jungle, which, we're working on, that's the last thing that we can logically think to stick in there. We're just going to have to focus. We're just going to have to eat this and just focus on the next one. And I think that's what they ended up doing. Like, they basically ended up giving up on Draenor at a certain point because it was a concept of a year-long expansion to see how it would go, to see if they could do it and how it would be received. They couldn't do it well. It wasn't received well.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're just being like, hey, look, we can't do an expansion that's actually good in the course of 1 year. Which
was perhaps arrogance or folly on their part to begin with.
No, it actually was. I mean, people were asking for year-long expansions.
Mm-hmm.
People were saying, hey, we're tired of these nearly year-long droughts at the end of an expansion.
What I find hilarious is that their big plan for a year-long expansion resulted in the same droughts.
Worse.
Worse drought. It was like a year and a half of Hellfire Citadel. But what I think Blizzard is taking the right approach is that we're not going to try to make the expansion just a year. Our solution to content droughts is we are just going to keep making content, and we're not going to try to think of it in terms of an expansion. It's like, we will produce content, and we will keep producing content patches, and the Legion expansion will be over when the story's over.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wouldn't even be opposed if, like, they dropped the conventional expansion idea and began just doing, like, chapters. Like, you know, they would say, okay, well, this...
They're not going to drop the convention expansion, though, because that's how they keep raking in money, because it's like $60 a pop.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying, like, they would do the same thing, except instead of, you know, $50 every 2 years, it would be, like, say, $20 every 6 to 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, they would say, okay, well, here's such and such island. You know, this is the new expansion. Here's what we're going to be doing with it. You know, and you would pay $20, $30 for like the first half of the island. It would be gated content. Like maybe a mini, like go back to almost like the 5-level increment level caps. Kind of a thing, and it would be done like that and more of a steady stream. I don't know how they plan to do this, because they haven't actually verbatim said they're going back to 2-year expansions. They
haven't said that, but at the same time, everything they've said about Legion, they're like, we see it being a 3-patch expansion. That would fit the general 2-year timeline of stuff like Pandaria and Cataclysm and Lich King.
True.
So
this is true.
So I think it's I think you're right. I don't think they want to like everything they've said sounds like they don't want to pigeonhole themselves into anything. Like they don't want to be pigeonholed into a 2-year time frame. But I think 2 years, it's worked for them in the past. They've been able to get fulfilling, worthwhile content out in the course of a 2-year expansion. So it wouldn't surprise me if the rule was 2 years is the baseline of what an expansion is. We can build off of that if it's necessary.
Yeah. What I have found rather interesting with Legion has been, like, story-wise, lore-wise, the supplemental materials they've released before the expansion launched clearly indicate they know where they're going after this.
Well, there's the Anduin one, which, basically says that in 10, well, not 10, or like 60 years, one, Anduin's still going to be alive. 2, Valen is still going to be alive. And that's surprising, because I know Draenor live forever, but he's old now. And, yeah, apparently they're going to be fighting either the Legion or the Void Lords 60 years into the future. So, that's another thing I wanted to talk about. I get the sense from Legion and everything we've seen so far that while Legion is by no means the end of World of Warcraft, it does seem like the final chapter of an era of storytelling. Like, this is going to be the final chapter of the traditional sword and sorcery medieval era of Warcraft, and we're going to space sooner rather than later. Because everything that they've said is they have said that the expansion after Legion will fundamentally change how we feel about how we see World of Warcraft. And then you've got the whole ending to that Anduin comic where, he's in the Exeter, which is a spaceship. And, he and Valen are like, we're going to launch the final assault against evil. So I think we're going to space sooner rather than later.
Warcraft 40K.
Basically, yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, and more than just the Anduin comic, they also released the, basically it's like a WoW lore compendium, Chronicle. I think it's supposed to be like the first of 3 volumes.
Yeah, I've actually got it.
Yeah, I know. And, in that they... I wouldn't exactly say they retconned.
No, they retconned it. They
retconned.
It's definitely a retcon, because it used to be Sargeras, the fallen titan, who's basically Space Satan, and he's leading the Burning Legion. It used to be basically that his motivation was he was in charge of protecting the Titan's creations, and demons kept fucking him up, and he kept fighting demons, and then he realized that there was no end to the demons, and his original motivation was he kind of assumed that trying to preserve creation against demonic onslaught was futile, so the only natural order was to burn everything down, and that's why he started the Burning Legion. In Chronicle, they retcon it, and they're like, no, he found out about the Void Lords wanting to take over the universe, and his response to the Void Lords was, I'm going to burn the universe down so the Void Lords can't get it. That's the right. So his motivation has fundamentally changed.
Okay, so they retconned it, but in any event, the massive changes they made to the lore and additions they put in clearly indicate they've got shit mapped out at least for another 1 or 2 expansions. People have been saying, Warcraft is dying, Warcraft is dead. Legion has done incredibly well financially so far.
They are not releasing subscription numbers because they don't do that anymore.
No, I think it got to be too embarrassing. Which, we joke about it, but still, honestly, to the fucking idiots have been saying, Warcraft is dying, even at 5 million or 5.8 million, they were still 2, 3, 4 times more subscribers than the next competitor, right? So, dying my ass. But anyways, what they have said is that Legion sold 3.3 million copies on the first day, which is in line with what Draenor did. But
they also mentioned, what was the terminology they used?
They said the most concurrent subscribers since Cataclysm.
And that's key, because when Cataclysm launched, that was when they were at their absolute peak.
Right. And what concurrent subscribers means is simply the number of people online at one time, individual subscribers online at once. And it also refers to how long they're being online for. So basically, in a nutshell, what it boils down to is more people are logging in, and they're staying logging in for greater periods of time in greater number, the highest number since Cataclysm. And while that doesn't give us, concrete subscriber numbers, it does paint a very promising picture. And I would say currently the subscriber numbers are somewhere probably in the 8 to 10 million mark at the moment.
I would say that, yeah, because they had 12 million when Cata launched. They had 12 million when Cata launched. If the subscriber numbers are on par with what Draenor did, Draenor rocketed to 10 million when it launched. They lost half of that, but,
in 3 months.
But I think the fact that Draenor initially had that huge bump indicates that that they're probably never going to get to 12 million again. That's probably never going to happen. But that Draenor proved that there is still a sizable audience of gamers who are interested in playing and paying to play quality World of Warcraft. And Draenor showed that, and it obviously didn't pan out because they dropped the ball big time as that expansion went on. But it did show that interest was there. And Legion has capitalized on that, and if they can, and the key is, okay, you got, that 5 million or so that you lost, you got them back. Now, hold on to them, and I think the game at launch has enough going on that that's possible. It's just going to depend on, over the course of it, can they hold on to the bulk of that? And I think they can. I'm going to be tentative about that, but I think they can.
If they keep doing what they're doing, the honeymoon period post-expansion release it is always filled with positive well, not always, but hi Randy. There's certainly a lot of positivity out there on the interwebs following an expansion release, and even you and I are a little bit subjected to it because we were really hyped for Legion, more so you from the get-go, and then after I seen what they were doing with it, I joined in.
The pre-launch event did a lot to help.
Yeah, in the sense that they actually had one that was meaningful and did something, and frankly was the best pre-launch event I've taken part in.
Easily, yes.
So, good on them for that. But I mean, there's a lot of positivity following the release of a new expansion. The key is going to be, can it keep doing what it's doing? Will it keep doing? I mean, is Blizzard actually going to, for once, keep a promise? And not, drop the ball and then, months down the road, years down the road, be like, oh, well, in retrospect, herp-a-derp-a-derp-a-derp.
In retrospect, 6.1 wasn't the best way to go.
You fucking think? I mean, I don't know. But anyways, the question is, can they keep doing it? Now, with the announcement of 7.1 and a preview patch, or a preview video already up, and them saying, look, all this stuff has actually already been internally tested and is pretty much good to go. We're slapping it up on the PTR in a couple weeks for testing, where everyone can go play it and try it out. That says a lot, and that's something they've never done before. But post 7.1, are they going to keep doing it? Of course, only time will tell. They certainly seem to be committed to doing it. And if 7.1 is that far down the line in development, then that means 7.2 is also in the works currently. So, or whatever follows 7.1 at least, whether it's 7.2 or 1.4. Okay, car doing things outside. 7.1, whatever. The point is they're doing shit. They're doing stuff. They seem to be committed to this idea of actually, giving content to players in their content-driven game. And that's a novel concept for Blizzard recently, and one that I fully support. If they keep doing what they're doing, then yes, good things await. I know a lot of people are on there saying, oh, it's the revitalization of WoW, it's the return of WoW. Well, WoW never fucking left. I mean, just because it's not, And
I thought Pandaria was very good. A lot of people retroactively are really high on Pandaria. When Pandaria was current, everyone's like, oh, stupid pandas. And now, after Draenor, people are like,
I miss Pandaria.
I liked when Pandaria did things.
I liked Pandaria, what with its things to do and stuff. New garrison mission available. Gunshot in background. But, so that's the thing. They're doing very well so far. They knocked the launch out of the fucking park. They are thoroughly impressing everybody with, the readiness of content. We'll just have to see, if they keep it up. If they do, they could make it back up to 10, 12 consistent subscribers, I think. But, we'll see. I mean, because eventually, the older player base, a lot of the players my age and your age and whatnot who started in BC and Wrath, they're not playing because they don't have time and there's nothing that can be done about that. It could be the best game ever and they just simply wouldn't have the time to play.
It's not vanilla.
Yeah, well, those people can fuck off. But, if they keep doing this, they may actually, begin to attract new players, which I know that they are still currently attracting new players. I'm sure there are people who joined during Draenor and probably for lack of knowing any better, probably liked it. Who knows? I'm sure there's a few out there. God bless them. But, they'll start to get more new players and keep the new players, and with that, who knows? Maybe they will get to 12 million again. Maybe they will start saying, okay, it's no longer embarrassing, so here are our subscriber numbers.
What do you think comes after? Because I think it's painfully obvious. I think we're going to Argus in the next expansion.
I don't think so, actually.
Because, okay, one, they're can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, one, you had Valen after... Which, by the way, that Valen quest chain in the Exodar, that's fucking depressing. But after, he's forced to kill his own son, or, well, after you kill his own son in front of him...
You're welcome, Valen.
Who was turned into basically killed Jaden, Valen's former BFF and now Legion, commander, stole his son from him, made him think his son was dead, and then raised his son as a general in the Burning Legion. After he holds his dying son in his arms, he's like, fix the fucking Exeter, we're going home. So there's that. And then you get all this information about, turns out Terralian has been leading the Army of the Light trying to fight the Legion on Argus. I think Argus is coming.
I don't think it'll be next expansion. Because, I don't know, I think I don't know. Draenor was kind of a Burning Legion-focused expansion towards the end. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, honestly, we all knew going into it that the Legion was going to be a thing that we fought in Draenor. I mean, everyone knew that going into it. So, we'll be nice and say half of Draenor was Legion-focused. Mm-hmm. It kind of was, it kind of wasn't, but Legion still played a substantial part in Draenor. And now we're in Legion, and as the name would imply, the Legion are around and doing Legion things in Legion, which is good, because otherwise they shouldn't have called it Legion. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know, to go to Argus in the next expansion would be basically 3 Legion-focused expansions in a row. I don't know if they want to do that. I think you might actually in the next... Because with the whole Void Lord thing, right? They've tied everything together.
Yeah, it's like poetry, it rhymes.
Shut up, George Lucas.
They've tied all of the light together because it turns out that Elune, the night elf goddess of the moon, forged the Nauru, who are like the beings that radiate the light. And so now it turns out that the Void Lords created the old gods. So all the good stuff and all the evil stuff has all been tied together. Right.
So you've got, I guess, for lack of any other knowledge contradicting, you've got Elune on one end, who begat, the light and the Nauru and blah, blah, blah. And then on the other end, you've got the Void Lords, who spat out the old gods and, by proxy caused the Legion to be a thing. And so that's that. But everything is kind of tied together. So now, they don't have to focus on the Burning Legion itself to progress the same story.
No, they don't. But I think the Void Lords were specifically set up to be the villain after the Legion.
And I think they will be, but I think there'll be stuff between now and the Void Lords. I think because there's still the old gods to deal with.
Well, the old gods weren't they more or less slapped back down at the end of Kata?
No. I mean...
Because corrupting Deathwing was their big master plan, and that didn't pan out.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? I mean, you still got Ashara out there kicking. N'Zoth, he was the one that corrupted Deathwing. He's the one who's been getting his hentai on with Ajara. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he's the thing. He's the thing that's out there. He's the thing that's doing stuff.
Here's my theory of what's going to happen. I think we go to Argus in the next expansion. In the next expansion, we defeat the Legion on Argus, which finally does them in for good. I think next expansion, we kill Jaden. Valen gets his "I have had enough of you" moment. That we take care of the Legion. Legion's all wrapped up by the end of the next expansion. That's when the Void Lords make themselves known. I think the next, maybe, I'd say 2 or 3 expansions perhaps after that, are all focused on traveling through space, basically. That they they take a hard turn into sci-fi. Well, science fantasy, anyway. With a kind of a planet-hopping campaign against the Void Lords and the Shadow. And I think that is going to come after we take care of the Legion. And I think what happens after that is we return to Azeroth to find that in our absence, the old gods and Ajara have really fucked shit up. And when we return to Azeroth, having to save it. That's where I think things are headed.
I don't know. I think there's probably elements of some of that that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I see Blizzard kind of shying away from the full sci-fantasy thing.
Well, again, though, they've said that what's coming after will fundamentally alter how we see World of Warcraft, and we know from the end of that Anduin comic that we're going into space eventually.
Well, here's my thing. I don't know how well that would be received. I almost think that would be too different for a lot of people. I mean, I would dig it. I think it'd be kind of cool.
Burning Crusade was a big turn into sci-fi, and that is remembered fondly by a huge chunk of the player base, rightly or wrongly.
Yeah, but you and I didn't like it.
Oh, yes. But I think that they've addressed a lot of the key problems that made us not like that. My big problem with Burning Crusade is the grindiness, and I think they've more or less addressed that in a positive way. So,
fair enough.
I think that's a positive step. I don't know. I think that's where they're headed. I think we're heading in a sci-fi direction. I mean, the Void Lords, the Burning Legion, all of this stuff has sort of this outer space backdrop to it, and I think, and I don't think we're suddenly going to be on board the fucking Enterprise. It'll definitely be science fantasy and not science fiction. It'll definitely be more Warhammer 40K I guess, where we're in space, but it's still very firmly rooted in fantasy tropes. So I think that's what's going to happen.
Well, I mean, Warcraft did start out as a Warhammer game.
It did, so
we'll see. I don't know. I mean, I think there's. Do I think you're completely off your rocker and crazy and wrong? No, I don't. But I don't know. I think what you're probably going to see is another expansion, which will probably shift over to an old god focus, with some kind of maybe Sylvanas Gen drama coming to a head. What the hell ever. Probably Ashara. I know you don't want to think about that. I know that does nothing for you. But hopefully, hey, it's been a long time since Bashir. It's been 6 years. By that time, it'll have been almost 8.
I didn't mind the Azuna Zone. So if they can do a Naga-centric expansion that isn't just Bashir, I'd be open to it.
Yeah,
I just don't want that whole underwater expansion. I think that would. I'll just unsubscribe. I'll just unsubscribe and then use the character boost in 2 years when the next one comes out.
And that's the other thing, like, okay, so let's say you're right, and next expansion, we're on the ASS Exodar.
Fighting demons through space.
Right. Now, what about the poor sod who's in Elwyn Forest, killing boars, and he's like, God, I don't have time to get to level 120. I'm just going to boost. And then, kabam! Space, motherfucker! Space! And that dude's just like,
what the fuck happened?
What the Sam Hill's going on here? Kind of like, the fuck?
I've missed plot points!
Yeah, plot points have been missed. I mean, yeah, so what I also think is interesting in this expansion, along kind of like the space thing, is that like already there are multiple portals in game that take you to the Legion actual homeworld of Niskar, which I think that might be a new thing they've thrown in. Because I always thought their homeworld was Argus, but what do I know?
Well, no. Argus was the homeworld of the Eridar.
Right, a.k.a. Draenor.
And most of the Eridar became Legion. Valen led the remainder, who became the Draenor, away. And so the Legion existed before the corruption of the Eridar. It's just that Argus, the Eridar homeworld, is one of their big bases. And it's been explained that Argus is like so drenched in demonic energy that the way that they explain demons is that if you kill a demon in the physical universe, its soul just returns to the Twisting Nether, and then it can re-enter the physical universe in a new body.
Right.
And so the only way to kill a demon for good is to kill it in the Twisting Nether, but they've explained that Argus is so drenched in demonic energy that if you kill a demon on Argus, they're dead too. Which is why I think they're gearing up for an Argus expansion, so when we do the Argus expansion and kill everything, and then kill the final boss on Argus, whether that's kill Jaden or Sargeras or whoever, then they can say, okay, Legion's done. Like, the Legion is done as a force.
Like, I don't even know how they would do a fight against Sargeras, and it be not a Deathwing fiasco all over again, I mean, the dude's like fucking Unicron.
Unless the only way that they can explain it is if instead of us fighting him directly, we fight someone or do something that ultimately ends up trapping him forever somewhere.
Maybe, or like maybe some kind of Titan resurrection. Like Sargeras was supposed to have killed the Titans, but what if like the expansion focuses around like a way they found to resurrect them, and then in this particular case, I could understand someone else getting the kill shot because 25 fucking jackasses beating on this planet-sized fucking demon. Yeah, no, I don't see that really making any sense, but then again, it is Warcraft.
Like, consider this. Consider this as a possibility. In the Argus expansion, final boss is Kill Jaden, because he is the next highest-ranking Legion commander now that his BFF Archimonde has been killed twice. I think that they've said that Archimonde is basically done.
Yeah.
And so Archimonde is dead, so it's Kill Jaden is the next guy up, and we kill Jaden, and the final thing is the final fight is against Kill Jaden and Sargeras, and resurrected Titans fight Sargeras in the background as we fight Kill Jaden. And the ending is we kill Jaden, and the Titans finally kill Sargeras.
That could work. But yeah, I mean that's just a few thoughts on where the future could go with this. The underlying point being that they have rewritten and added a lot of things lore wise. They can draw on in any order in any way they want, and it actually will all still kind of be part of the same big picture. I mean, they've tied up a lot of loose ends that were just kind of like dangling there. And I think that works, Not to mention that probably you're going to be seeing Night Elf tallies in the next expansion, I would bet.
Possibly, yeah. Well, there is that one. There's that one in the Order Hall quest, and they established that Elune forged the Nauru, who are beings of pure light, so channeling the force, the power of Elune is like channeling the light. So Night Elf tallies as a thing is possible. And I'm down for that. So yeah.
So maybe I wonder if that would mean the Horde would get Blood Elf shamans.
I trying to think who in the Horde doesn't have shamans who could. Yeah, Blood Elf shamans maybe.
I mean, that'd be like, because that's the way like the parody kind of always follows. So I don't know. But anyway, so yeah, that's that. In short, Legion is surpassing most people's expectations, certainly mine. It's being, by all accounts, well received. Not just by fanboys either. Like people who are usually really critical are being like, "Hey, yeah, this is actually pretty good." Ultimately, what it boils down to is we're just going to have to wait and see, though, whether or not this will actually continue to be a thing of things being good, mind you, or if they're going to fuck something up again. Do you have anything you wanted to add or go over? Or?
In terms of Legion on the whole, again, very positive. I think if they keep on the current track they're on, it has the potential to be objectively the best expansion they've ever done. I think there's some intriguing plot points, too, that I'm very curious to see where the story goes. I don't know if you've caught that bit where there's that series of quests you do at Azuna with the undead warlock and the demon hunter.
Yeah.
Where you have to, scout that Legion camp.
Yeah.
And, the undead warlock is these portals are terrible. Why is the Legion so bad at constructing, at summoning their own kind? And then if you go back to the Broken Shore, there's that whole bit where, Gen and Jaina are going, the demons are expanding faster than we ever thought possible. This is not the same Burning Legion. Something has changed. So I think there's some interesting potential story elements that could get expanded upon later. So I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Again, my biggest complaint is that it almost seems like there's too much stuff to do, and that's a good problem to have.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. So I guess next episode we do will be back to normal format for the most part, unless there is some kind of Legion development that we feel like we've got to talk about. We are currently in the midst of planning a political show with Greg, which will be coming up
next week soon.
Yeah. Basically, when his schedule frees up and he's able to do so, we will be doing that. And you'll have a whole host of reasons to send me hate mail. As usual, basically. Anything else you want to go over?
Not really, except that, if you account for scale and you take into account what counts as success in one, marketplace versus what counts as success in another marketplace, Legion is better than the new Ghostbusters movie.
I've seen things come out of my cat's asses that are better than the new Ghostbusters.
Have you actually seen it yet? Out of curiosity.
No, I'm not gonna fucking see it.
Oh, I thought maybe you'd have no objection to watching it, through less than...
Okay, for me to even pirate the goddamn thing, I would still have to be that bored. And, dude, Legion just came out. Do you really see me, like...
Dude, come down to Tampa now that we're in the same country. We'll have a drunken night of it.
Possibly, but it's just like, yeah, I mean, for me to even... It's not even a question of I'm not going to pay to see this movie, and I'm not going to pay to see Ghostbusters.
I gave my money to Independence Day 2.
I mean, it's
and
a question.
Movie wasn't all that great, but whatever.
It's a question of, is this even... Do I even want to give this thing, like, the recognition of 2 hours of my time?
Okay, this movie was bad. It was terrible. I've spent 2 hours of my time on worse.
Yeah, but I mean, just on principle, I just basically don't want to give it 2 hours of my time in any form.
You could do what I did, which was after I saw it, I immediately went back and watched the original Ghostbusters. So I think in terms of karma, it all does balance out.
Well, see, I mean, I rewatched the original Ghostbusters a couple weeks ago anyways.
God, that's a good movie.
And the second one.
That's less so a good movie.
Well, it's not as good. I still maintain it's kind of over-maligned. I mean, it's not great, but it's not bad.
It does have that great line, people think you're a con artist, and Venkman's like, but I am a con artist.
Lol. But anyways, anything else we wish to touch upon?
Combiner Wars, the Machinima Transformers series is still crap.
Oh, if they brought out a new episode?
A couple new ones, yeah.
Oh. I'll get around to it. It's on some site I've never fucking heard of, so...
Go 90.
Yeah, whatever. Fuck them. They're stupid.
You know why it's called Go 90?
No, I don't. Do I sound like I know her hair?
I'm going to tell you.
Oh, joy.
It's called Go 90 because when you watch it on your phone, you have to turn your phone 90 degrees to get the widescreen. That's what the good folks at Verizon came up with.
Go fuck themselves.
That'll do it for episode 71 of Basically a Geek Show. You can catch us on all of our platforms, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube, iTunes, at basicallyasportshow.com. Email us at you can email us at basicallyageekshow@gmail.com and catch us on Twitter at a Geek Show. For Jack as he simmers in rage at Go 90 and Verizon, I am Mike. Signing off.
Later, guys.
Night.